Life has a mysterious way of unfolding. Often, we find ourselves placed in situations we never asked for, with people who test our patience, challenge our identity, and drain our energy. Among the most difficult are the encounters with narcissists. They manipulate, belittle, and confuse. They may take your kindness for weakness and your love for granted. But what if I told you in life, the most powerful lessons often arrive wrapped in discomfort? The presence of a narcissist in your life may feel like a curse, confusing, draining, even painful. But pain, when observed with awareness, always holds the seed of wisdom. We must begin to understand that certain people do not come into our lives to love us, support us, or bring us peace. Some arrive to awaken us. They are not blessings in the conventional sense. They are catalysts, triggers, mirrors. When you encounter a narcissist, it may seem like life is punishing you, as though you are the unfortunate victim of another person's selfishness or emotional dysfunction. But this is only how it appears on the surface. Beneath that surface lies something more meaningful. The narcissist forces you to confront aspects of yourself you may have ignored for too long. Your lack of boundaries, your need for validation, your difficulty saying no, your tendency to prioritize others while abandoning your own well-being. These are not flaws to be ashamed of. They are blind spots waiting to be seen. A true teacher is not always kind. A true teacher is someone who shows you your weakness without apology. In the Shaolin way, when a student trains, it is not with soft pillows and gentle words. It is with pressure, with hardship, with resistance. Why? Because growth cannot happen in comfort. Comfort keeps you stagnant. It lulls you to sleep. But challenge, it wakes you up. That is what the narcissist does. They are a spiritual weight, a heavy stone placed upon your chest, asking, will you finally push back? In this way, they reveal your power. They awaken your sleeping strength. At first, you might respond with confusion. You question yourself, lose confidence, and shrink in their presence. But with time, you begin to see the pattern. You begin to observe their behavior, not as a reflection of your worth, but as a test of your awareness. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding with clarity. You stop trying to fix them and start protecting yourself. This is the transformation, the alchemy of adversity. What began as suffering becomes self-realization. What once felt like betrayal becomes a breakthrough. You realize you were never truly broken by them. You were being built. Your spirit was being shaped, your boundaries were being formed, your voice was being forged. So you see, the narcissist was not a mistake. Life does not make mistakes. Their presence was precise, their role was necessary. They were a harsh lesson in self-love, delivered in a language your soul could no longer ignore. And once you have learned what they came to teach, you will move forward, not with bitterness, but with a quiet power, a deeper wisdom, and a calm heart that finally understands. This too was part of your path. When you look into a mirror covered with dust, the reflection is distorted. You try to see clearly, but something feels off. That is what it's like being in the presence of a narcissist. They are a mirror, but not a clean one. They reflect not who you are, but who they want you to believe you are. In this distortion, you begin to question your own reality. You wonder if you are the one who is too sensitive, too emotional, too much. And in that space of self-doubt, the seed of awakening is quietly planted. The narcissist does not just manipulate your emotions, they challenge your sense of self. Their presence shakes the foundation you've built your identity upon. This is not a random or cruel act of fate. It is an invitation to go deeper within yourself. You begin to realize that what they distort was never truly stable. The need for approval, the habit of over-explaining, the fear of being disliked, these weaknesses were already there. The narcissist simply exposed them. If you observe carefully, the narcissist is teaching you to see, not to see them, but to see yourself, to see how often you allow your worth to be defined by someone else's opinion, to to see how frequently you abandon your truth to maintain peace. They are not showing you love. They are showing you what happens when you give your power away. And this, though painful, is clarity. It is the clarity that can only come from being lost. In being made to feel invisible, you learn how deeply you desire to be seen, not by others, but by yourself. In being silenced, you discover the value of your voice. In being manipulated, you uncover the strength of your intuition. There is a story behind every reaction. If you stayed too long, if you kept forgiving, if you silenced your instincts, there is a reason, and that reason is rooted in old pain, in childhood wounds, in a pattern of putting others before yourself. The narcissist does not create these patterns. They simply highlight them with such intensity that you can no longer ignore them. This is the work, removing the dust from the mirror. The longer you stay awake in their presence, the more clearly you begin to see first them, then yourself. You see their tactics, their emptiness, their mask, and finally, you see your own reflection, unfiltered, unshaken. What was once blurred becomes defined. What once felt like emotional chaos becomes spiritual clarity. And when the mirror is finally clean, you realize something extraordinary. The truth was never in their reflection. It was always in yours. They were just a contrast. The challenge, the shadow that helped you find your light. And in that moment of recognition, you do not need to fight them, change them, or prove anything. You simply walk away, not because you are angry, but because you have seen enough. There is a reason you were targeted by the narcissist. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong in a way they cannot understand. You carry something within you that they do not possess, a light, a natural sense of empathy, a quiet but powerful integrity. These are qualities that seem invisible in a world that rewards loudness and control, yet they are the exact qualities that challenge those who live behind masks. A narcissist is drawn to what they lack. Like a moth to a flame, they are pulled toward the energy they cannot generate on their own. They seek out those who listen deeply, feel fully, and care sincerely, not to honor those traits, but to absorb them, to control them, to silence them, so they can feel in control of something they never earned. But your light is not there for them to steal. It exists as a reminder to them, and more importantly, to you, of what cannot be faked. They sensed your compassion, your patience, your willingness to understand. They saw your potential long before you did. But instead of nurturing it, they tried to contain it, because your presence confronted them with what they were running from, their emptiness. Your kindness threatened their illusion of superiority. Your honesty disrupted the lies they told themselves. And your strength, though gentle, shook the false power they tried so hard to project. But you didn't see this at first. You may have mistaken their attraction for admiration, their intensity for love. You may have believed that if you just gave more, proved more, tolerated more, things would get better. But all the while, the truth remained unchanged. It was never about you being not enough. It was about you being more than they could handle. You see, those who manipulate are often frightened. Frightened of being exposed, frightened of being seen for who they really are. So when someone like you comes along with depth, with honesty, with emotional strength, it unsettles them. They don't know how to stand beside such light, so they try to dim it. And yet, even in their attempt to take from you, they inadvertently reveal to you just how powerful you truly are. This is not about ego. It is not about being better than them. It is about recognizing that you were chosen, not as a victim, but as a mirror. You held up to them the image of who they could be, but refused to become. And you held up to yourself the truth of who you always were, but may have forgotten. Now, the time has come to stop shrinking, to stop explaining your light to those committed to living in shadow. You carry something sacred, your presence, your spirit, your awareness. It is not theirs to take. It is yours to protect. And once you see this clearly, the game ends. You stop dancing around their wounds. You begin walking in your truth, not to prove a point, but because your path no longer includes those who cannot honor your light. Growth never happens in still waters. A river becomes strong not because it flows easily, but because it moves against rocks through pressure and around obstacles. In the same way, your soul does not evolve in comfort. It evolves through resistance. The narcissist in your life acted as that resistance. They were not just a challenge to your peace, they were a challenge to your identity. And through that challenge, something within you began to wake up. At first, you may not have seen it. You may have felt only the chaos, the confusion, the emotional exhaustion of constantly defending yourself, explaining yourself, trying to be understood. It felt like walking through fog, where nothing made sense, where love and pain blurred together. But slowly that fog began to clear. And with each painful moment, something began to grow, awareness. You began to notice the patterns, the way your boundaries were crossed, not once, but repeatedly. The way your words were twisted, your emotions invalidated, your needs ignored. And in noticing, a choice appeared. Not the kind of choice that shouts, but one that whispers. The choice to protect your energy. The choice to stop just surviving and start standing. The choice to say no, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. This is the silent strength that adversity gives you. Just as a blade is forged through fire and hammered into form, your spirit is shaped by trials. The narcissist did not break you. They revealed to you what was unbreakable. They forced you to access parts of yourself you hadn't needed before. The voice that says, enough. The courage to walk away without needing permission. The wisdom to stop arguing with someone who never truly listened. This strength is not loud, it is not aggressive, it does not need to be seen to be real. It lives quietly inside you. It is the strength that says, I can hold my center no matter what storm you bring. And once you access that strength, everything begins to change. You stop reacting, you stop needing their approval. You no longer fall for the bait of their drama or the illusion of their charm. This is where true transformation happens. Not in avoiding pain, but in using it as fuel. You become disciplined, not just in action, but in energy. You become clear, not just in thought, but in truth. You are no longer easy to manipulate, not because you are guarded, but because you are awake. The narcissist was not your destroyer. They were your training ground. They pushed and you rose. They tested and you strengthened. Without their presence, you might never have discovered just how far your inner power could reach. So now, walk forward. Not with resentment, but with gratitude. Not because they deserved your pain, but because you earned your strength. And that strength will never leave you. It is yours now. You were shaped by resistance and transformed by it. Not every connection in life is meant to last. Some are meant to teach, to awaken, to redirect. You may not have entered the narcissist's life with the intention of becoming their mirror, but that is exactly what your presence became. In a world where they carefully craft illusions of power, superiority, and control, your authenticity becomes disruptive. Without even trying, you hold up a reflection of what they have long buried truth. You did not arrive to change them. That was never your role. Yet, even in silence, your presence spoke. Your kindness reflected their cruelty. Your honesty made their lies harder to hold. Your emotional depth made their emptiness more apparent. This was never about confrontation. It was about contrast. Sometimes, just by being who you are, you create friction for those who live in denial, and in that friction, something begins to stir. You may never see the results. They may never admit what they felt in your presence, but that does not mean the seed was not planted. Seeds do not demand attention. They fall into the soil quietly, and only time will tell if they take root. Some people need to lose the light before they recognize its value. Some need distance from truth before they crave it again. You were that light even when you felt small. You were that reminder even when you doubted your worth. In trying to silence you, they revealed their fear. In trying to control you, they exposed their weakness. Your refusal to match their cruelty became a silent act of resistance. Your ability to remain grounded, even in their chaos, was a message stronger than any words. This is what peace looks like. This is what presence feels like. There are times in life when the purpose of your presence is not to fix, but to awaken. Not in others, but in yourself first. Through the struggle, you woke up to your boundaries. Through the manipulation, you recognized your truth. And by choosing to walk away with dignity, you showed them and yourself what self-respect looks like in action. Whether or not they change is not your burden to carry. Some people will continue to run from their reflection. Others, in quiet moments alone, may begin to question what they once dismissed. That is not your responsibility, but it may be your legacy. You planted something they did not expect, a memory of someone they could not break, a memory of someone who saw through the mask, but chose not to become the same. And so you continue, not bitter, not broken, but with a deeper knowing that even in pain, you serve a purpose, that even in silence, you spoke volumes. And even if the seed you left behind never grows, the one within you has. That growth is your gift. The rest is no longer yours to hold. Freedom does not always arrive with celebration. Sometimes it comes quietly after a long period of confusion, reflection, and awakening. When you reach the other side of your experience with a narcissist, you realize something profound. The lesson was never about them. It was always about you. Not the version of you that was hurting, doubting, or trying to be understood, but the version of you that was waiting to be remembered. At first, you may have thought you were losing yourself, but now you can see more clearly you were shedding everything that was no longer true. The people-pleasing, the silence, the fear of being misunderstood, all of it had to fall away. You didn't break. You were being stripped down to something more real, more steady, more unshakable. Freedom begins with recognition. You begin to recognize that you do not need to fix anyone to feel worthy. You do not need to be chosen by someone else to feel valuable. You do not need to justify your boundaries, your voice, or your peace. What you needed was already within you. The narcissist could not give it to you. But through their absence of love, you discovered the presence of your own. They taught you what love is not, what peace is not, what truth is not. And in doing so, they pointed you toward what is. You stopped reaching outward for validation and began listening inward for wisdom. You stopped searching for safety in someone else's hands and built it inside your own. That is when the shift happens, not just emotionally, but spiritually. This is not a loud freedom. It does not need revenge. It does not seek to prove anything. It simply exists, a quiet knowing that you have nothing left to fight for. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of proving your worth or questioning your reality. You are no longer drawn to chaos disguised as love. The patterns that once pulled you in no longer have a hold. You look back and feel no need to return, not because you are bitter, but because you have learned. But the lesson has rooted itself so deeply that even the memory no longer stings. It simply reminds you of how far you've come. This is where the story changes. Not because they changed, but because you did. You became more conscious, more grounded, more aware. You began to trust yourself again, to believe your own feelings, to protect your energy